Hey, I'm Andrea, and this video is about lefty relief pitcher on the Royals, Richard Lovelady. Lovelady missed the 2022 season because he was recovering from Tommy John surgery, but he's back this year. He's competing for a spot in the Royals pen, and I think he's an intriguing trade target or acquisition target for any team trying to compete that wants to add a lefty reliever to their bullpen. So let's get into what makes him so intriguing. Lovelady's got plus control and command. He throws 3 pitches, a slider, sinker, and a four-seam. He's got a crossfire delivery with a low 3/4 slot, almost sidearm, and he stands on the extreme third base side of the rubber. In terms of velocity, he's throwing all 3 pitches harder than average. The slider's at 87 miles per hour and the 2 fastballs are at 93 miles per hour. He also gets 97th percentile extension, which is incredible, so all those velos are going to play up. In terms of movement, the four-seam is the only one with below average shape, meaning it gets less ride and run than average, but that slider gets above average sweep, and that sinker gets above average sink and run. Looking at Lovelady versus right-handed hitters, he throws that slider 48% of the time, the sinker 28%, and the four-seam 24% of the time. Looking at these heat maps, the sinker and the slider move in the east-west direction, the four-seam moves north. He's using that slider in on right-handed hitters, the sinker on the inner outer third, and the four-seam upper third. And Lovelady's best offering versus right-handed hitters is that slider. He's throwing it in zone and it gets great results. Looking at this table, the in-zone miss is slightly worse than average, but the pitch gets a high ground ball rate, and when it's thrown out of zone, it's getting more chase than average. The sinker also performs as an above-average pitch, and in this table, I didn't include in-zone miss because he is pitching to contact, so he has a high zone rate and a high ground ball rate at 73%. Lovelady also mixes in that four-seam to right-handed hitters, but it's not getting as good results as that sinker-slider combination. And part of the reason why is because he's not throwing it in zone. If we go back to the heat maps, the four-seam and the sinker are both thrown to the upper outer third of the zone, so it's possible that he's trying to get hitters to chase the four-seam out of zone by getting hitters to think that it's a sinker. That being said, the pitch is not being chased enough to justify that low zone rate, and it's also getting below average in-zone miss. Now looking at Lovelady versus left-handed hitters, he's still throwing that slider the majority of the time at 52%. But now his primary fastball is his four-seam, which he's throwing 24% of the time. Looking at these heat maps, he's throwing the slider away from left-handed hitters and the four-seam towards the upper third of the zone. He does occasionally mix in that sinker at 8% of the time, but the sample was so small there was no pattern in terms of where he's throwing it just yet. So just like when he faces right-handed hitters, that slider is getting above average results versus left-handed hitters. Looking at this table, the slider is thrown in zone, gets a higher ground ball rate than average, also getting slightly more chase than average when it's thrown out of zone. The four-seam is performing better versus left-handed hitters than it did versus right-handed hitters, and this is in part because he's throwing it in zone more frequently, and it's getting a higher in-zone miss rate than average. He's not using it as a chase pitch, but when it is thrown out of zone, hitters are not chasing it as much as average. As a left-handed pitcher with that low slot and crossfire delivery, I would expect Lovelady to face majority left-handed batters, but he does have competitive results versus right-handed batters as well, so I wouldn't label him as just a lefty specialist. As I said before, I think Lovelady's an interesting player to watch this year. We'll see if he's changed anything since coming back from Tommy John surgery, but I do think he is an intriguing target for any competing team trying to add a lefty to their bullpen. If you like this video, please hit subscribe and follow me on Twitter @ScalcoReport. Thanks for watching!